I'm Maria Cayenne, and I am here with Gina of Milsboro, and we are happy and inspired to be talking with you at the Unitarian Universalist Church. Tell us about your history here, your family's history.
Well, my grandmother and grandfather, they owned huge acres and acres of land. As a matter of fact, 43 acres Townsend acquired from my grandfather, and that's how they expanded the chicken plant, the poultry plant, and it was called Townsend's before Mountain Air. And all my mother and all her siblings was raised back here.
And your grandfather was
he was the first sharecropper in Delaware, Sussex County.
Wow, first. Amazing. I was extremely alarmed when I went back home after talking with a lot of the neighbors in the area.
Right.
After talking with all of your family, I will never forget going from house to house to house. And I was like, your sister had tumors. And your niece was pregnant.
Yeah, she kept having seizures and kept falling out of work, but hitting her head, and it was just terrible. They had to take her out of work. They wouldn't let her drive or anything. But that's the thing that gets me today is that with all this crime that's going on and the racism with the police and everywhere else, that people don't think about the environment stuff. Because, if we had better clean air, me and my son would have been here today, but my son suffered his whole entire life with asthma. And if we had better clean air that God gave us for free, then, the two main things he gave us for free, water and air, and a right to live. And for somebody to contaminate our water and our air, and then they choose whether we live or die, if they choose whether we live or die, that's not fair. You cannot contaminate or anything that God created.
With everything that's happening this week, with the trial, with George Floyd, and this was a Washington Post article called Environmental Racism, and we talk about environmental justice, but it's actually environmental racism, and this goes into it's really well done, but it talks about the fact that for decades and decades and decades going back, before we had the I can't breathe with what's going on with the racism, in the way that bad police are not being held accountable, we had the same thing going on in communities, and there's folks in here that were fighting for 40 years that were getting arrested in protests and saying, we couldn't breathe because of all the contaminants that were coming out into the communities, because it was poor minority communities and the pathway of least resistance, right? They had no political power, they were poor communities, and they had every type of polluting industry.
But Sussex County is suffering. They choking because people in Sussex County is choking because you got the poultry plants, you got the electrical plants, you got the trash companies, the trash sites, the dump sites, you got the gases. Everything is just, we're choking in Sussex County with all these chicken plants, and we just can't breathe.
People that are not living in these areas, they want to help, they want to get involved.
They need to talk to the people in charge, the councilmen, the representatives. They need to talk to them and tell them that they don't have a right to keep approving permits and contracts without the public's opinion and approval.